We want to start this episode by acknowledging the Gadigal and the Wongal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of the land on which we record this very podcast. We also pay our deep respect to elders past, present, and future. Always was, always will be. This podcast may contain discussions about violence, drug use, and it's most definitely going to contain a lot of foul language.
I'm sorry, it sucks.
Good evening. It's your favourite podcast in the whole world.
It's Sorry He Sucks!
Welcome to our
Episode
Mouths.
4 and mouths.
Oh, episode 4 of season 3. Very exciting.
I'm excited.
We're giving the people what they don't want.
You know what that is?
It's the art episode.
An art episode.
Do you like art? I love it.
I love art.
It's probably going to be a long one, as they always are just such like deviant little psychos.
And they're very interesting. And I think we should just be totally transparent from the get-go. My beautiful next-door neighbours, who I really adore, are having a little get-together and fucking good for them. And
It's true.
There may be a little bit of noise and we're going to get through it.
You're going to hear people going
It's flair.
and saying things, nice things to each other probably, but hopefully you can't hear exactly what they're saying because they might be pissed off about
Yeah,
that.
we probably need to get some kind of signature on that. Like some kind of have a form or...
Sign off.
Yeah, sign off. Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that.
All right, so tonight I'm doing someone who's probably one of the most famous artists of the 20th century.
So am I. Oh, sorry, hit
Well-
my microphone.
Get your extreme hold moustache wax ready. That's right. It's Salvador Domingo Felipe Jacinto Dali e Dominice, first Marquis of Dali de Pulo.
Shit.
Salvador Dali.
Yep,
It's a long fucking name.
it's pretty long.
He's a Spanish surrealist, and something else that I'll probably tell you about later because I don't want to ruin this first bit with nasty things like fascism. Oops,
Oh.
I spilled. His story starts 9 months before he was born, when his older brother Salvador, yes, his older brother Salvador Dali, died of gastroenteritis at the tiny and tragic age of 3.
Oh.
And his parents, who were understandably devo about this, made the pretty unusual choice to give their new baby the same name.
That's hectic.
And they also said a lot of weird shit to him, like that he was the reincarnation of his brother, which is pretty crazy.
It's a lot.
It's bound to fuck you up. So he was pretty haunted by this dead brother. Later in life, he said, quote, "We resembled each other like 2 drops of water, but we had different reflections."
It's deep.
It is deep. He also said that he was, quote, "probably a first version of myself, but conceived too much in the absolute," which is such an annoying, like, postmodern thing to say.
It is.
His brother also turned up in several of his paintings, including one very imaginatively titled Portrait of My Dead Brother.
Oh. What's it about?
Yeah. He grew up in the Catalonian city of Figueres with his father, whose name was Salvador Rafael Aniceto Dali Cusi, and his mother, Felipa Dominice Ferreres, and his younger sister, Anna Maria. Sal Senior was a successful lawyer and apparently a bit of a disciplinarian. And thus little Sal was terrified of him. He loved Philippa, though. She was from an artistic family, and she taught Sal how to make figurines out of wax, how to paint, really encouraged his creativity.
I've never thought of his name as Sal, so
so
off-putting,
it's
but I
funny.
love it.
I'm going to do it a lot.
Please.
And she was really proud of her little boy. And she boasted about his childhood talents. She'd said to someone, when he says he'll draw a swan, he draws a swan.
Whoa.
And when he says he'll do a duck, it's a duck.
Amazing.
Which is pretty impressive for a kid. They usually just scribble, you know?
Yeah. And then you say like, oh, who's that? And then they say something like, oh, it's a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and it's just a scribble. And you're like, oh, my God, it's so good. It looks just like it.
Yeah, you're a liar. They turn you into liars.
They do.
Salvador was super spoiled by his mother and all of this household, like servants or workers or whatever.
So it was pretty well-to-do.
They loved the shit out of that little weirdo. But he fucking hated school. He got teased a lot. He had weird phobias. He was terrified of grasshoppers. Terrified. And other kids would catch them and like chuck them at him just so they could hear him screaming his little head off. He was also a massive daydreamer. His dad didn't like that. Pissed off about his progress at school, so he sent him to this really, really fancy private school where they only spoke French. So when he was only 5, he's 5, and his dad was like, you're not doing good, you're a daydreamer. He's 5. It's sort of weird, right?
Yeah.
He could speak Catalan, Spanish, and French, which is impressive. And
Very.
French would be the language that he adopted the most, like within his art. He would like write things on his paintings always in French.
Okay.
Anyway, despite learning French, he still he fucking hated school. Didn't matter if it was fancy in French.
Yeah.
His favorite times were his summer holidays that the family spent in like a nearby seaside town of Cataclis. The town is only about 2 hours drive from Barcelona. It's a super nice, sleepy, beautiful tourist town. And the rocks along the coast here were a massive inspiration to him. They had these sort of random holes in them. The light would change the way they looked. They're pretty amazing. And you can see them in, you know, those funny landscapes that looks like that place.
Yeah, right. Okay.
He'd also see little faces and figures within the rock holes, and it was very fun and inspiring for him. It was also home to some pretty wild-looking marine life that you also can definitely see in many of Dali's works. Those grasshoppers pop up a lot too.
Well, they're frightening.
Very. And as a kid, he would spend the whole summer just drawing and being creative, just loving life. Sounds lovely, right?
I like it.
On the Spanish coast. Ooh. Dali had a very distinctive personality, even when he was a kid. He wanted to express a very authentic version of himself, but he also did want to be a major success. He was always very driven. In his biography, titled The Secret Life of Salvador Dali, he said, quote, "At the age of 6, I wanted to be a cook. At 7, I wanted to be Napoleon. And my ambition has been growing steadily ever since."
Well, that's impressive. Napoleon did have some ambition, but to want to be Napoleon and then to have further ambition is
Yes.
big boots.
He had his first
Actually, it was tiny, teeny, tiny boots.
Yeah, he was a little, tiny little man. Dali had his first exhibition in Figueres when he was just 14.
Wow.
When he was just 16, his sweet mummy died of breast cancer, and Salvador was absolutely devastated, as you would be.
Yeah.
He said of this time, "It was the greatest blow I had experienced in my life. I worshipped her. I could not resign myself to the loss of a being on whom I counted to make invisible, the unavoidable blemishes of my soul, which is
Wow.
beautiful. Mummy. Love my mom.
She's the best.
She's listening. I love you.
We both love you, Lily. Shout out, Lily. Like.
I'll just move on. Some summer or another, down in Cataclysme, he had met a man by the name of Ramon Pichon,
Oh.
who was an artist from Paris, who happened to know your mate, Pablo Picasso.
Yeah.
And this guy, Ramon Pichon, he taught Sal to paint like the Impressionists. But he was also pretty into the avant-garde scene that was emerging at the time and sort of taught Sal all about that stuff.
Okay. All right.
He mentored Salvador all through his youth, and it was Ramon who was able to convince Sal's scary dad to send him to the San Fernando Academy of Art in Madrid. And when he arrived in Madrid, he caught people's attention right away, not just because he was very thin and almost 6 feet tall. He also dressed like a massive dandy with like long hair, sideburns, this like long coat with stockings and knee breeches in this very Oscar Wilde-esque style that
So
was
what,
outdated by about 40 years
Yeah,
at that point.
around what time was this?
Probably around 1915, 16.
Okay.
Maybe 20 even, actually.
Yeah, we'll
Sorry.
say the first half of the 19th century. The 20th century.
Very early. He made friends with the poet Federico Garcia Lorca, who I remember very unfondly from university.
Okay.
And Lorca was super hot for Dali. And even though they had a very passionate relationship, Sal was not really into sex. So they never did it.
Okay.
Despite this, they still remained really close friends, like BFFs. I nearly said BFFs forever, but that is...
Best friends forever.
Yeah, well, maybe that is...
That's you and me.
Anyway, they were very close until Federico died in the Spanish Civil War in 1936, which is fucking sad.
Yeah.
Sal almost finished his university studies, but told a lot of people that he dropped out just before the end because, as he saw it, none of the teachers were competent enough to judge his work.
Ooh.
But what actually happened was
Spicy.
he was expelled when he refused to take the final oral exam, claiming, "I am infinitely more intelligent than these 3 professors," which is pretty...
Arrogant.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Anyway, he was getting into Dada, your fave.
My fave.
Futurism, my fave.
Hey.
Cubism, Picasso's fave.
Yeah.
He was spending a lot of time at the Prado Museum studying the greats. He wanted to be able to do everything.
Okay, that's good.
And he also, at this time, discovered Sigmund Freud, who became...
Wanker.
Well, he became a major influence on Sal's work. Yawn, yeah, okay.
I think I might have actually said this on this show before. The only show that I ever speak on. Sorry, he sucks. But like, I think it was in The Female Eunuch. Germaine Greer said Sigmund Freud was the father of psychoanalysis. It had no mother. I just really enjoyed that.
That's good.
I embroidered it on a piece of paper once.
Aw,
I'll show you later.
I'd love to see it. Salvador had a few shows where he exhibited and sold out of his like Cubist style work. He was already getting successful commercially.
I can't imagine how that would feel. I've sold artworks before and I always price them too low and I'm always just like, oh man, I should have covered the cost of the frame. And then, but like to sell out a show must just be wild.
Yeah.
I know that's silly because loads of people would, but it's just like, it just must be the most amazing feeling.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
In 1926, he went to Paris for the first time and he met the great Pablo Picasso, who, like every fucking painter ever, he fucking loved. He was introduced to him by Joan Miró, who was also a Catalan and was really impressed by Dali. Miró also introduced Dali to surrealism, which was to be Dali's main focus for the rest of his career. And we have discussed surrealism before on this podcast, so if you want to know the definition, listen to that Man Ray up or fucking Google it, man. I'm not wasting my word count going over it again.
Shit.
Also, you should know. It's a pretty big deal.
It's a big deal.
God, guys, you're fucking lazy.
Also, I think, like, we spoke about it on the
Yeah.
Diego one as well,
Yeah, we
briefly.
did. I'm sick of going over it.
Look, just listen to the art episodes. They're great. You're missing out.
Thanks, Go. Nicer than I. In August 1929, he met his muse, his dream woman,
Oh.
and later his manager.
Oh.
God.
Kris Jenner.
She is my muse dream woman.
Yeah.
I hope.
Sorry.
One day a manager. Her name is Gala.
Oh, yes.
She was born Elena Ivanova Daikonova, a Russian immigrant
Yeah, I was
who was 10 years his senior and was married at the time to a surrealist poet who I've never heard of called Paul Eliade. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, El-Uad, but I'm pretty sure it's Eliade. I'm just going to say it wrong.
I think it
rest of
sounds
the
beautiful
show.
coming out of those sweet lips.
Thank you. Dali's work got really good. He was once he met Gala, he was exploring his sexual anxiety and a lot of stuff about his dreams and shit. He had his first show in Paris, which André Breton described as the most hallucinatory that has been produced up to now.
Wow.
Yeah. And we've talked about Breton before.
Yeah.
He was in that
It's got
clique.
the Breton badge of approval.
Yeah. The show was a very good commercial success. And then Dali officially joined the Surrealist group in Paris. While all of this very exciting shit was happening, his relation with his father was falling to bits. Sal Sr. did not like Gala. I'm not sure why. I don't know how I would ever know why.
No.
These people have been dead for a long time.
Look,
Anyway.
I spoke to Sal Senior a couple of times about it. But.
He also saw his hanging out with the Surrealists in Paris as a bad moral influence, which, sure, maybe, but this is coming from the man who married his dead wife's sister less than a year after her death. So shut up, Senior.
Whoa.
Yeah, he's a dick. The rift got worse when
It's weird.
Sal's father read in a Barcelona newspaper that Salvador had exhibited a drawing of the Sacred Heart with the inscriptions, "Sometimes I spit for fun on my mother's portrait."
Ooh.
And look, that's not great, but it's also very clear to me that it was for art's sake, like for shock value. His dad demanded he make a public apology and recant what he'd said, but Sal was like, no way. It's my art and my cool surrealist friends will kick me out of their club if they think I'm a sissy who listens to his daddy. And his dad told him that he was out of the will and that he wasn't welcome in the family home in Cataclysm ever again. All very dramatic.
That is dramatic.
Salvador then got super famous when he painted the Persistence of Memory. The melting
classic.
clock one. He had massively critically, commercially successful shows in Paris and New York. Loving the high life. He married Gala in 1934 after sinfully living together since 1929.
You dirty dogs.
And on their first trip to New York, which was that year, they caused a massive scandal when they went to I think it was like a Halloween party or something, dressed as the Lindenberg baby and the kidnapper. And the kidnapping it's really funny. I found a picture. I'll try and find it again and put it up on the socials.
Oh my God, I have to see this.
And the kidnapping had only happened like a year before. So people were still kind of sore about it, like, too soon.
But also that was like the beginning of kidnapping, wasn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Fun fact, my parents' house was owned by the magistrate who was on the the court case for the first kidnapping in New South Wales. And the guy who did that was inspired by the Lindenberg case.
Shit.
And that's why there's ghosts in my parents' house.
Like the Lindenberg baby ghost.
No, the other baby ghost. just many ghosts. The other kid, the New South Wales kid's ghost. It's a fascinating story.
Okay.
Go look it up.
I will.
I'll just tell you about it. You don't have to.
Yeah, just
but everyone
tell me
else
about
do
it
it.
later. Sorry.
I'll do this.
I thought you were talking to me.
No.
You were talking to out people in the
Yeah, I'm just going to
microphone.
tell you the story later. I probably already have.
People were calling Daly a sellout.
Wow. Because of the Lindenberg baby?
No, just because he was doing really well. But he couldn't give a shit. Like, who would? He's like, got that dough, doing what he wants to do, being his weird self. He also made some enemies just because they didn't love his strange behaviour and thought that he was an annoying weirdo. Mm-hmm. But he just did not care.
Is there any, like, notable enemies? Or just, like, generally speaking?
Oh, yeah, but I'm going to put that in the bad section.
Oh, okay, I'll wait for it then.
But he was like all about that fame. He was on the cover of Time magazine. He was a superstar. And then World War II hit, and he and Gala left Europe, moved to New York City for 8 years.
Oh, wow.
During that time, he became even more of a sellout, if that's what you want to call it. He did TV ads. He made stage sets. He did window dressings for, like, fancy
Bergdorf Goodman or something?
Yeah, he did massive weird publicity stunts, like walking down the street with a massive, like, anteater or an aardvark or something, like, weird. He even he designed the Chubba Chups logo.
Really?
Yes.
I think I might have known that, but I haven't.
Cool as shit.
Yeah. We get a chop later.
I want one. I like strawberries and cream.
Do you? I'm a big fan of the cola.
Just classic.
Classic. Oh, no, oh my God, I just had a recovered memory. I used to.
Oh.
That cherry one. I used to get a cherry one all the time. I love
good.
cherry.
I love cherry. I love cherry too. That's what I meant to say. He was probably one of the first major artists who was so closely aligned with, like, marketing and advertising.
Yeah, he's like Andy Warhol before Andy Warhol.
Yes. But look, he had to work real hard to afford the lavish lifestyle that he and Gala had become so accustomed to. So they were spending about $500,000 in today's money per month.
Holy fuck balls.
Yeah. So he just had to keep doing shit like that.
Jeez.
And he could.
And get that paper.
Yeah. He wrote his autobiography. He wrote a novel. He created installations, took incredibly cool, wonderful photographs, collaborated with amazing photographers, filmmakers. He was insanely talented, and he schmoozed with the big guys. He stayed with Coco Chanel. He met his idol Freud. He worked with Walt Disney on an animated film that I am devastated to say was never finished. But in 2003, Walt's nephew Roy got hold of it and released it as a 6-minute short, which I'm yet to watch, and I thought maybe we could watch tonight.
Yeah, let's do that. Also, Fantasia, super surrealist.
Yes, he inspired it, but he didn't make Fantasia.
But doesn't that just reek of surrealism?
Yes. It was probably around the same time, actually. In 1948, he and Gala moved into their beautiful holiday house in a small town near Cataclysm, which was quite near where he had summered as a child. The next year, his sister released a book called Salvador Dali, Seen by His Sister, which was really nasty about Gala.
No.
So he cut off
Why does everyone hate Gala so much?
Look, I've read some pretty intense articles about her. Like, people are like, she was like Satan. And I think she was pretty intense, scary, mean, bitchy, cunty person, but
All right.
I respect her. Good for her. Yeah, so he cut his family off. But then he got really into Catholicism.
What?
And his work reflected this. In 1968, he bought Gala a castle in Pubol. I don't know how to say that. It's spelled Pubol. And she would stay there for weeks at a time without him, and made him promise that he wouldn't visit her there without written permission from her, which made him pretty paranoid and depressed.
Wow.
In 1980, his health was really bad. Gala had developed Alzheimer's, and she was just like giving him huge doses of amphetamines.
Oh. Whoa. She has Alzheimer's and she's doling out.
She's giving him his medications. She's his wife.
Oh, no.
He's hopeless, you know. So he was addicted to them, and the speed created like tremors in his arms, which prevented him from creating anything. And also it led to basically he developed Parkinson's. He was 76. Gala was 86 when she died. And he drove her corpse home from the hospital propped up in the back of a Cadillac as if it was alive.
No.
And then he buried her in a vault at their castle.
Wait, he did it all himself?
I guess so.
Ooh.
He didn't get in any trouble, so I guess maybe someone helped.
You can't do that.
I think it's really funny that he drove her home propped up.
That's so hectic. Do you think he could go in the T3 lane or the carpool lane? We call it the T3 lane here. You got to have 3 passengers to go in
We've
it.
got T2s too.
Oh, there's T2s as well, 2 passengers.
In
What
80
does the T stand for? Transit? Transit 2? Transit 3?
No, it must be transit. Yeah, it's a transit lane.
No, it's trollop 2. Tart.
It's tomato 2, tomato 3, 1 tomato 2. Anyway.
Just you go up to the shop.
Look, we're talking about the end of Salvador Dali's life here. It's serious.
I'm sorry. I can't believe that he propped his wife up.
It's
who was
fucking
dead.
brilliant. It's classic Dali behaviour.
It is, but it's very upsetting. That's
He
sad.
was really fucking upset. And the next year in 1984, he was really sick. He was depressed, refusing to eat, which led to like very serious like undernourishment, malnourishment, you know. And in
Either
August
or.
that year, there was a fire in his bedroom, and he was hospitalized with severe burns.
Why was there a fire? Was it scented candles?
Probably. In 86, so 2 years after that, he had a pacemaker installed. Is it installed? The right
He had it installed along with a 2-car garage. Yeah, he got it installed.
And then not long after that, he appeared at his museum. He had his own museum, I think in Cataclys, and he made a statement, and he said, "When you are a genius, you do not have the right to die because we are necessary for the progress of humanity." And then a few days later, he fucking died.
Sorry.
Look, it's funny, but it triggered me really bad because when the last thing I ever said to my dad was that me, behind his back, me and my brother call him the man who wouldn't die. Because he was sick all the time. He literally died the next day. He probably died like a few hours later after I said that. It's hectic, sorry. A bit too dark.
Well,
It's fine. My dad's dead. So is Salvador Dali.
If we revert back, I just think that it's funny because he's self-aggrandizing himself as this genius who can't die.
So funny. And then he just carks it.
And then, there's something very poetic about it.
So, Cara, my epic love, what do you love about Salvador Dali?
Well, my serious little surrealist dream, babe. Look, a lobster on a telephone. It's genius.
Genius.
He has a really strong look.
Yeah, I love a strong look.
I love a strong look. I love a commitment to a look, like especially a fucking weird one.
Yep.
I can always appreciate a commitment to a look.
Yeah, I can.
I might not like it, but I can appreciate it.
That's why we love to hate Karl
Lagerfeld?
I mean, we hate him, but we love that look.
Yeah, he committed to it.
Yeah.
I really enjoy surrealism. It's a bit weird. It's a bit crazy, you know. His artworks are pretty great. I'm into him.
Pretty great.
Pretty great.
They're fucking amazing, Cara.
They're pretty great.
Like, I think it's really amazing that he studied all those great painters so that he could do everything, so that when he really found his voice
niche
or whatever as a painter, he knew he could do anything he wanted.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think that his works are amazing. And I have been lucky enough to see many of them in person. And that to me has been like such a moment. Like it's been such an incredible moment because, and I mean, like we could say this about so many different, but really all of the art episodes. Like when you see these people's work in person, there's something like euphoric about it because it's like, I don't know. So nowadays, because of the breadth and the variety of art, some things like are photographed so well, but there's nothing that compares to actually being in person with these kind of like these absolute pillars in modernist art.
Iconic.
Bottom line is, I do think he's an amazing artist. I also think he has some real good stories. Like End of the Party, everyone's having a smoke, you're hanging on his every fucking word. Like I'm sure that's just so far from the truth, actually. So maybe you can shed some light on that. But that's how I feel.
Look, I love him too. I love him a lot. When I was writing this, I was like, why am I doing this for Cara? I'm the one who loves Salvador Dali the most of everybody in the world. No, I don't. I just really like him. My mum got me into surrealism, and we went to, there was like a retrospective, maybe it was in the 90s, at the Gallery of New South Wales. It was amazing. They had so many Dalis, Magrittes, all those fucking people.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing my favourite, which is still my favourite, The Metamorphosis of Narcissus. And seeing it in person was so weird because I'd looked at that painting like in a book so many times and it was so massive to me, like.
Yeah.
And then when I saw it, it was fucking tiny.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe how small it was. Anyway, I loved it. It was amazing.
It's so bizarre like that with, seeing things in the flesh.
Yeah.
And how much they're not what you want. I mean, the Mona Lisa is a great example of that, which everyone knows. It's fucking very small.
Yeah.
I would like to say that I appreciate an artist who has an artwork called The Great Masturbator. I think that should go.
I'm going to talk about that.
I'd like to point that out.
Yeah.
I'm a great masturbator, all right?
I think everyone is probably very great at masturbating.
Look, we all consider ourselves to be a great masturbator.
If you're not, it's time to practice.
And I've pitched this idea for a reality television show so many.
All right, let's get on to some bad stuff because I'm fucking rattling on a lot here. And I want to preface this by saying that there's nothing wrong with Dali's sexuality. That's not why I'm discussing his sexuality in this bad stuff section. There's also nothing wrong with keeping your private life private or not having a label for yourself. It's okay. It's fine. I'm not criticizing it, but
It's very intriguing.
I say this because I think it just really explains so much about him. to know some of this interesting stuff.
Hit me.
So when he was a little boy, his ultra-conservative, ultra-scary father emphasised to little Sal that sex and desire was a sin and a very evil thing to do. So, like any good lapsed Catholic will tell you, he grew up to be a little deviant. He also had the very twisted view that all sexual acts were denigrating, and you could see this in his paintings, like the Great Masturbator. So there's this weird, deformed woman giving a blowjob to a man whose knees are bleeding, like her knees are bleeding, it's very, there's a grasshopper attached to the woman. It's just like there's so much going on in that fucking painting. I actually never even noticed in that painting that she's giving a blowjob to a man. I never noticed the little penis.
Penis?
Never noticed it before. His father, in a deeply traumatizing way of warning his kid away from sex, also made him look at a book that was basically just photos of the genitals of dead people who had STIs or that were disfigured in some really scary looking way.
Oh my God.
Yes. And he was deeply disturbed by this, as am I.
Oh my goodness.
And he once said,
That's not okay.
and he said this not when he was a child, as an adult man, he said that if he had to make love to a woman, that he would die.
Whoa.
Yeah. He was terrified.
I'm sorry, but that kind of reminds me of you because so much of the time, Amber, like we'll just be in a supermarket and then something like today, I think we were looking at pasta sauces and one of them fell down and she pushed it it was perfect timing because it didn't break. It kind of like fell down and she pushed it back onto the shelf and she was like, I almost died. So.
Look, I said that in a way that I guess he might have thought he would die, but maybe he did say it the same way I would.
Maybe he was being
I would
funny.
die.
I would definitely wouldn't say it in that context, but I do love the way that you say it in many contexts, which is not fitted for.
One of my things. He was terrified of female genitalia. And that's probably because the only ones he'd ever seen were sick and dead. He would only masturbate. And despite rumours of him being gay, like, that's fine, but he never had sex with anybody.
Like ever?
He was definitely still a virgin when he met Gala when he was 25. He was scared of sex with anyone his whole life, man or woman.
That is so sad.
But just because he didn't like to be touched or have sex didn't mean that he didn't like a Maz. Mm-hmm. He actually really liked watching other people going at it and having a go on himself. That makes sense. Having a go on himself. Lucky for him, Gala was an openly very sexual person, and she was super into boning other dudes while he watched. Perfect couple.
Cuckold.
Loves it. They went through a phase when they were very, very rich where they would have weekly orgies at their house.
Cool.
Which is so weird for a man who doesn't like to have sex.
Yeah.
But anyway, one time, our Lord and Saviour, Cher, attended one of these orgies. And
all I can think of is suspicious mind. Sorry.
She said of this fancy sex party that she picked up a, quote, beautiful painted rubber fish, just fabulous. It had this little remote control handset, and I'm playing with it, and the tail's going back and forth, and I'm thinking, it's a child's toy. So I said to Salvador, this is really funny. And he said, it's wonderful when you place it on your clitoris. So that's fun.
Wow.
She didn't know she was at an orgy.
Oh.
I probably should have said that before. But anyway.
Yoo-hoo, surprise, orgy.
Yeah. Surprise, put it on your clitoris. Now, all that masturbation and self-proclaimed impotence aside, it was claimed on multiple occasions that he had had many, many sexual affairs. There was even a paternity claim made by one Maria Pilar Abel Martinez, who, apart from being a clairvoyant, claimed to be, quote, Dali without a mustache.
Ooh.
She looks nothing like him,
Okay.
in my opinion. Maria said that her mother had had a fling with Dali in 1955 and that he was her father. I just feel like choosing a man who told everyone he was impotent as being your father is kind of dumb. But
Did her mum say that?
I guess, yeah. But a judge deemed it realistic enough that in July 2017, his body was exhumed in order for DNA samples to
I
be
did not
taken.
know that.
Wild. And then 2 months later, it seems like a long time, but anyway, 2 months later, the results came back and he was not her fucking father.
So Maury Povich.
In May 2020, the Spanish court dismissed the case, ordered Maria to pay for the cost of the exhumation. What a bloody nutter.
That mustn't come cheap, hey?
No.
Exhuming a body. Because you must need very, skilled people to do it, I'd imagine.
Hectic. Sal had been given a nickname by
on.
his ex-friend, by the time he called him this, Andre Breton.
Oh.
He called him Avida Dollars, which basically means eager for the dollars. And Sal sure did love getting that coin. In the 70s, he stipulated that he was to be paid $100,000 an hour to start in June.
Oh, David Lynch.
But it was before David Lynch had it.
Okay, yeah.
This other guy had it.
Yeah.
The project fell apart. Mostly, probably.
Because of Dali?
Maybe. That's a lot of fucking money.
How much?
In the 70s, $100,000 an hour.
An hour.
He was going to play the great...
An
I can't
hour.
remember the
Wow.
character.
And because when you think a television or movies, we've done some stuff, but I've definitely done something recently where it was involved with television, and it was just the magic of television is a farce, and it is. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I thought I was going to piss myself because I couldn't leave the sound stage. Everything takes so much time. $100,000 an hour.
Even in the 90s, the Friends cast were getting paid $1 million an episode or something.
And an episode is minimum.
It's not an
many
hour.
hours.
So anyway, look, it's crazy. In the 80s, when he was really sick and almost dead, Gala got him signing blank sheets of paper and would sell them to people so they could do forgeries of his paintings.
Oh.
Because he couldn't paint anymore.
Oh, God.
Fucking weirdly evil and so sad, sort of.
Yeah.
But ugh. He just didn't give a shit, I guess.
Yeah.
He also did this really nifty trick and he did this his whole life since he got famous anyway, where he would go out to restaurants all the time, but he would also go with groups of friends, be like, this is on me. Then he would do a little drawing on the back of the check, knowing that the restaurant would never cash an original Dali.
Oh, my God.
It is evil.
Is it evil? I quite
It's
like
genius,
that. I
but
think that's quite funny.
But he did it because he knew the money would never come out.
So he's paying with a check in a restaurant?
Yeah.
Oh, the times.
The times. A lot of other artists have also called him a sellout, but honestly, fuck that shit. What's wrong with artists earning money? And Dali was never just a painter or a photographer. He was a goddamn force of nature celebrity. Or was he just an insane narcissist?
Both.
He was always comparing himself to saints and shit. He was pretty psychopathic in my opinion.
Yeah.
he felt it was okay to treat people badly. He used people with high status, and after he got what he wanted, he was out. He was like the early centuries to Kanye West, but obviously incredibly talented.
Oh, burn! Sick burn. That was a sick burn.
I like
Amber.
Kanye. I like him. That was mean. Sorry, Kanye. All right, now I'm going to get into some actual bad stuff.
Oh.
I just wanted to get all that out of the way so you could get like a context to his personality and, you know, how he's a bit over the top in case you didn't know that already.
Yeah.
First up on the shitty things list is cruelty to animals. Dali collaborated with an American photographer called Felipe Hausman, who, interestingly, was convicted of the murder of his father in Austria in 1928. But it turned out, with a little help from some heavyweight friends, including Albert Einstein and Sigmund Freud, that the whole thing was a big anti-Semitic setup and he was eventually pardoned. Long story, but I just had to put it in there. Hausman and Dali created this fucking iconic photograph together called Dali Atomicus. It took 28 attempts to get it right, which usually would be absolutely fine to get it right, you know? Except for the fact that in this instance, each of the 28 attempts meant chucking 3 cats in the air and flinging a bucket of water at them.
No.
So not so great at all.
Love you, Schnickel Fritz.
Oh, poor Schnick. I'm pretty confident in saying those cats would have been under extreme duress. Dali also had a pet ocelot. And as we all know from 2020's The Tiger King, it's not fucking cool to keep wild fucking animals. Its name was Babu, and he took it to dinner. He took it on trips on ocean liners. Yeah, it's pretty fucked. Whatever, it was a different time, maybe? No, the cat thing is really fucked.
The cat thing's really fucked, but also, I mean, like, you're
But
right.
that picture is amazing.
You are right, though. It was a different time. Like, thinking about, I mean, this, not necessarily the same time, but they used to sell, like, the most exotic animals, and everyone knows this, in, like, department stores, like Harrods.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that
You could buy a
lion.
lion.
Yeah. That lion that meets, like, so basically this guy bought a lion, takes it home, fall in love, have a great time. He's like, this is crazy. Lion's got to go. And then they meet back up, like, many, many years later.
I've seen that video.
Yeah. That was from Harrods, that lion.
Whoa. Fuck it up.
I know.
Okay. Dali was also quite violent from a young age. In his autobiography, he talks about how when he was 5 years old, he pushed another kid off a suspension bridge and then afterwards sat there watching the kid really in pain. He's just eating cherries, watching.
Oh, my God. That's so sadistic.
Sadistic psychopath. Oh,
Horrible.
it's terrifying.
So wait, off the suspension bridge into water?
I don't know.
Oh, God.
Fucked up. The next year, when he was 6, he kicked his sister in the head. In his words, as though it had been a ball.
Ah!
Like really fucking hard. And his violent tendencies towards women increased with what I think was his revulsion of scary vaginas. When he was a teenager, he
Should be fucking scared.
He teased a girl for 5 years who was in love with him. Like, she was madly in love with him, which is weird. For 5 years anyway. And he'd kiss her and touch her, and then he'd say horrible things to her, like really torturously.
That's horrible.
Yeah. It sounds like it's weird to say, like, he would only kiss her and touch her and nothing more, but that's not what I mean. Like,
But the whole psychological warfare of
Yes,
that
yes.
on a person who you know that you're...
Yeah. He, like, resented her, and it's, like, really fucked up.
Ew. Should we take a side note and say what was the worst thing that your sibling ever did to you? You're the eldest, so maybe there's nothing that beautiful DJ Morgs did to you.
He would hit and kick really hard, but I never did to him because he was little.
Did you have any, like, real standout moment?
No, but we were pretty, like, we'd fully go at it. Even
Yeah.
just for fun, we would hurt each other quite
Same with
badly.
Michelle and I.
I kind of miss those days of just punching people in the face and
Yeah.
pushing people off the bed really hard.
One time I tried to feed our cat with a fork and Michelle said, "You want to know how it feels?" And then she grabbed my forearm, turned it around, and then she stabbed me right in the vein with a compass needle.
Whoa!
And then the blood went pew in the air. And then I think she was like, "Oh, shit. I'm going to really get in trouble for this." And I just remember Mum like holding my arm and it was just like hectic because it was in a vein.
Michelle, you fucking bitch.
I just wanted to feed the cat with a fork like a human.
All right, let's get back to Dali being aggressive and psychotic.
Please.
As an older person. When he was 29, he, quote, trampled a girl who made some comments to him about how he had beautiful feet. And these is his words, quote, "So true that I found her insistence on this matter stupid. His companions, he says something else, but I can't remember. I chopped this up. Until his companions had to tear her bleeding from his clutches."
He trampled her?
Because she said he has beautiful feet.
Just trampling someone as one individual seems like a mean feat on its own. Do you know what I mean?
Such an intense
horrid.
word to
Yeah.
use, like, bleh. And Gala wasn't spared from his abuse either. One time in a jealous rage, he hit Gala so hard that he broke 2 of her ribs, which is really fucked up. And what's also scary is that these are just the ones we know about because he told us in his book. So I don't know about other assaults that he didn't want to include in his fucking autobiography.
That's fucking nuts.
It's fucking terrifying. And don't worry, it gets even worse.
Go on.
While most of his contemporaries were pretty much lefties, Dali was always quite ambiguous about his opinion of politics, especially within art. He was insistent that surrealism could exist apolitically. Most, Dada's super like socialist.
Yeah, of course. That was the whole crux of the movement.
Andre Breton did not buy it. And he was like,
Andre smells
like,
a rat.
"You're a Nazi sympathizer."
Whoa.
And then Dali said, quote, "I am Hitlerian neither in fact nor intention." Meaning, no, I'm not. But he refused to, they said, okay, we'll denounce fascism. And he refused. And based on this, in 1934, the surrealist gang put Dali on trial.
Whoa.
So obviously not like a real trial, but
Kangaroo court.
pretty serious trial. That's not serious, but is serious.
Yeah.
If you're a surrealist.
Absolutely.
He somehow avoided being kicked out of the group. So I'm not sure what happened. I tried to find more about this because it's mentioned in a million places, but then there's nothing about the trial. And then he later said of this group, the difference between the surrealists and me is that I'm a surrealist. Ooh. Then, in 1939, after Franco's victory in the Spanish Civil War, Salvador wrote a letter to his old mate from university named Luis Brunel, who was a Spanish-born filmmaker and who at some point had planned to shoot Dali with a gun over what he'd written about him in his autobiography. So he's like bitchy little bitch. And their friendship had ended for good when Sal denounced socialism and praised Catholicism and the fascist Spanish political party Falange. That's what it was called.
Not Farage, because he's also a...
No, very similar vibe. In May that year, Andre Breton was very excited to announce that Dali had been expelled from the group in his magazine called Minotaur.
Oh, that's funny. You
Gives
say
me
that.
terrifying flashbacks to that Man Ray episode. Maybe everybody was involved in the murder of the Black Dahlia.
I say Minotaur.
Okay, that is how you're supposed to say it.
Oh, I was just checking. I wasn't.
dumb.
No, I was just making sure because I am going to say that soon.
You're right. And I'm dumb.
You are incredibly intelligent and outrageously beautiful and brilliant.
Thank you. Anyway, Dali actually moved back to Spain to live. Most of the Surrealist gang had cut him out. He'd pissed off a lot of his other artist friends by supporting a fascist regime. He didn't have any friends. Even our mate Pablo Picasso refused to ever mention Dali's name again, nor even acknowledge his existence for the rest of his life.
He did that with a few people.
Oh, okay.
He's a cunt.
Even in the 60s, Andre Breton unsuccessfully tried to stop Dali's work from being shown in a surrealist retrospective in New York. And it wasn't just Andre who was petitioning, other surrealists were pissed off too. And they put out a pamphlet, at the same time the exhibition was on, denouncing Dali as the, quote, ex-apologist of Hitler and friend of Franco.
Oh.
Which is true. He was. In a Dali biography by Eric Shane, Shane suggests that the whole Hitler thing was way more of a way to just piss off Andre Breton than anything else. Mm-hmm. Like he was just a bratty troublemaker who thought the whole thing was hilarious, which I guess I can totally get, but, you know, it's 2021 and it's still uncool to make jokes about World War II.
Yeah.
So I guess at the time it was defo too soon.
Yeah.
He did a bunch of paintings which had Hitler in them, like The Enigma of Hitler and the classic Hitler masturbating.
Wow.
He also said that he, quote, often dreamed of Hitler as a woman and that Hitler as a male or a female turned him on.
No, baby, no. It's that little tickly moustache.
But look, regardless of whether the Hitler stuff was just a big hilarious joke, he did love Franco. He called him the greatest hero of Spain. And Franco really liked concentration camps and was responsible for the deaths of somewhere around 300,000 people. Mm-hmm. But Dali didn't care. He painted a picture of Franco's daughter on a horse.
Jesus.
And that is the end of my story.
He painted a picture of Franco's daughter on a horse.
That's what he thinks about that. So did you know any of that? Do you care?
Yeah, I care. I mean, I knew he was a fascist, but I didn't know the details about it. Also, I think it's really interesting because when you were saying about the people, like the backlash being like, no, we don't want him to be in this exhibition and no, we don't want him to be on display. It's super interesting to me because at that moment when you said that, I was just like, yeah, but he's like he's really important.
He's really important and
surrealism.
popular.
Like, he's kind of like the crux of...
Like, everyone's coming to see him, not fucking Andre Breton, who isn't a painter, of course.
No. Look, I knew he was going to be a cock.
I love him still. I don't care.
It's hard.
I mean,
The next one's a massive cock too.
I don't want him to... I don't think it's great that he loves Franco.
No.
But I guess I just don't really think of him as a real person.
Exactly. That's true.
Because he's so intense and ridiculous.
He's like this weird caricature. Like
he's surrealism. He's right.
Yeah. It's a tricky one.
It is a tricky one.
But you know what's even trickier?
What?
The amount I need to wee right
Okay.
now. So we're going to have a break. And then we're going to talk about another person, another one of the greats of the 20th century.
I'm very excited. Here's one of my favorites.
Until now.
Yeah, right. We'll see. You know I don't give a shit about anything.
I'm sorry, it sucks. It sucks like.
Well, hello, we're back.
We're back.
Well, Amber,
Yeah?
some people try to pick up girls and get called assholes. This never happened. to Pablo Picasso. Jokes.
Oh.
He really was an asshole, it seems.
No.
So we're doing our art episode. So I'm obviously going to be chatting about the dominant father of Cubism and one, maybe aside from Salvador Dali, of the most significant artists of the 20th century.
Everyone loved him.
Mr. Pablo Ruiz Picasso.
Whereas?
Ruiz.
Oh.
But he actually, like our foul-faced friend Diego Rivera, had 18 or 20 names depending on who you ask.
Fun.
I'm including like all the Des and the Las.
Oh, yeah.
But one of those names is in fact Diego, so somewhere. And another fun fact, both Picasso and Diego had the name Maria shoved in there somewhere as well.
That's a girl's name.
It's a girl's name. So Picasso was born just 4 days before you.
In 1979?
On October 25th. But no, he was a fair few years before you. That's true. He was born in 1881.
Oh, yeah, that's a fair bit.
It's quite a long way.
Not much, but fair bit.
He'd be like 139 this year. But he's dead. Spoiler alert.
Well, you should be happy since you hate him so much.
Just wait, maybe you will too. So he grew up in southern Spain in Malaga.
Beautiful.
So did Antonio Banderas. Pablo came from pretty good stock. His father was an artist and a professor. There's quite a few similarities I heard in your bit. He had 2 little sisters. One was called Lola and the other one Conchita.
Adorable names.
And his mother's name was Maria, but that's all we know about her because the patriarchy.
Yeah, who cares about women?
So some say baby Pablo could art it up before he even spoke. He was an early starter, and his first word was pencil.
Oh, that's significant.
Yeah, but it was in Spanish, of course, because it would be really fucking weird if he just abruptly said, pencil!
It wouldn't mean pencil because
No.
it was just like
What?
They wouldn't know.
He started amping things up when he was like 7, and he began studying art in a more formal way. And at one point, his father was like, shit, the student has become the master. And then he was like, I vow never to paint again, which is so
Really?
hectic. Yeah.
Whoa, what a psycho.
Such a hectic reaction.
Chill out.
Imagine if when I started doing my own taxes, my dad was like, I will never, ever look at a PAYG slip again. Taxation be damned. Okay.
I like it.
Then there was a very traumatizing event in Pablo's life, which was another similarity. His sister Conchita died from diphtheria. Horrible.
Ooh, I don't really know what that is, but it sounds
It's horrible.
like it's about your butt.
It's about a lot of things, but it's horrid.
Okay.
It's a bad way to go. That was in 1895. So Pablo was like 14.
Oh.
Then his family packed up and they moved to Barcelona.
Love it there.
Me too. When he was like 13, he took like this entrance exam, 13, for an advanced course and started studying at the School of Fine Arts, which was pretty fucking remarkable.
So it's like a university.
Yeah.
When he's like a little Doogie Howser of the arts.
He is. And he soon moved to Madrid and studied at a different university, but he wasn't very disciplined, probably because he was fucking 13 years old.
Yeah.
So.
I wonder if it was the same one that Sal went to.
Possibly. So Pablo continues to paint. He's getting some praise. In 1900, he travels to the city of lights and love. It's Paris.
Hooray.
He's really fucking poor. And I read that at times he and his flatmate would have to just burn his paintings to heat the freezing hovel they were living in. Can you imagine? They're worth millions of dollars. And around this time, he started just using like Picasso, like as his last name was just like Pablo Picasso. No Ruiz. He's still dropping all of his other like.
He's like, I'm not Maria.
His other 18
Diego.
names. Yeah. So, shall we get into Pablo's periods?
Yeah, I'd love to hear about menstruation. Sorry, terrible joke. Cut it out.
Well, there's more jokes to come because he often found himself bloated with a short fuse for bullshit,
Whoa.
which was exacerbated by severe cramping and discomfort. I'm just kidding. I fucking wish Pablo had to experience that monthly. I'm talking about his different artistic periods.
It was serious.
No, his blue period took place between 1901 and 1904. It was pretty depresso espresso.
Love
and
it.
Funnily enough, blue was quite prominent.
Yeah, you got to use blue if you're in the blue period.
Totally. There was a lot of very malnourished people featured in Pablo's work at this time. You'll know, and I know we spoke about it earlier, the 1903 work, The Old Guitarist.
Love that fucking painting.
He does not look like a well man, though.
He's sick as shit.
Oh, one of Pablo's mates had died by suicide.
Oh.
This horrific event heavily influenced his work around this time and the tone of his works.
I'm blue, down, dee, down, down, dee, down. Sorry.
We then move on to the Rose period.
Yeah, that's nice.
Paint me like your French girls. Sorry, I was just thinking about Rose from Titanic. Anyway, this was a bit more positive. Like, he started really getting into, like, jesters and acrobats and shit, like circus people.
I don't really like that.
No, neither. Small hands. And you can really see, like, the inspiration. I think in this period, like, it looks like he's very heavily inspired by Toulouse-Lautrec. Lautrec?
I don't know that person.
You do.
Oh, yes, I do.
Like a faux character in Moulin Rouge. He's been popified.
Yep. Absolutely.
He started a relationship with an artist and model named Fernand Olivier. I'm sure that influenced his little, like, sad sack pieces. You know, he's just, like, feeling a little bit more,
Yeah. Getting some, and she's wonderful.
Mm,
She's a model and an artist.
So around this time, the Steins showed up, and I'm not talking about the delightful Rick Stein and his delicious food. I'm talking about Gertrude.
Yeah,
she
bitch.
became Pablo's principal patron and began to have lots of chats with her art philanthropic pals about the importance of his work.
Yeah, good.
It's pretty important. It is important. I can pay that.
I love it.
Pablo also met his lifelong frenemy, Henry Matisse.
Oh, love Matisse.
Yes, he's good around this time. So that was, that happened. Next, we have his heavily African influence period. We're talking free will and proto-cubism.
Yeah, nice.
This was 1907 to 1909, and this is when he painted the infamous La Demoiselle d'Avignon. And this
lady from Avignon.
Boom.
I've been to Avignon.
I have not.
It's really cute.
Good.
Real cute.
Nice cheese.
Yeah?
Wine.
Yeah, good wine.
Bet.
It's like a walled city. It's really cute.
Fucking love a walled city. We don't have that shit here.
Yeah.
I mean, although we don't let anyone in, obviously. But it ain't walled.
No. Me and my friend met a French man who was from Avignon. Mm-hmm. And he just sat with us and talked to us for maybe like 2 hours. And he spoke no English. We spoke no French. And we just like weirdly tried to communicate for 2 hours. We're like, what is this fucking guy doing here?
I remember this story. I really love it.
Le bus. He would finally understood what we meant when we said we came by bus. It was like the biggest thing that had happened in the whole 2 hours. He went, oh, le bus. Anyway, shut up, Amber.
No, I love it. Don't shut up. So this work wasn't shown until 1916, 9 years after its creation, because even his mates fucking hated it.
Really?
Yeah, everyone hated it. Toot toot. Do you hear that, Amber? That's the analytical cubism train pulling up to the stage.
A bit more fun.
So this is the period most people would associate with Pablo. He wasn't alone